Okay, we are live. Okay, guys, how are we doing? Good afternoon, good evening, or what time zone you're in. I hope everyone is having a great day or had a great day, and we are going to wait until a few more people join, and we are going to get started with today's webinar. So let's just wait a few more seconds, get a few more people coming in, and we will start. So before we start, guys, if you are connecting from anywhere around the world, I know there's some people from Europe, from the UK, from the US, maybe even from Argentina. So if you, wherever you're connecting from, definitely go and hit the chat there. You should be able to access the chat. It's on your far right in the navigation menu. So yeah, make sure that you can hit that and share about where are you guys from? Argentina. Okay, so we've got someone from Argentina. That's great. Oh, Montreal, Canada. Nice. Okay. So yeah, just post there where you're coming in from, and we'll be started in a few seconds. We're just going to wait a little bit more until a few more people connect. The time can take some time for the links to go out. Minnesota. Nice. Minnesota. Sorry. Okay, connecting shortly. Oh, Toronto, Canada, that's good. And we will get started very shortly. Oh, British living in Argentina. Well, it sounds a bit like me, so thanks, thank you. Okay, guys, so we are going to get started. It's 2 minutes into the webinar, so let's start rolling. One more in Austin, USA. Okay, great. So today, guys, I put this webinar together really because, as some of you may be aware or maybe not, I do a lot of SEO training and coaching, and I've never really done a live webinar. I've never really gone out there and created a live webinar that is pure training for free on demand, just for anyone. It's always been one-on-one or small groups. I've very rarely done a big group. So this is the first time I've actually launched like a webinar where I just share it with all of my database, and a lot of people have helped me kind of get some visibility for the webinar. So it's a really great, for me, it's been a great milestone, and I just am very conscious of the need to do this more. So this is the first time, and so bear with me, and I hope it will be fun. I hope it will be also super insightful, and maybe there'll be some takeaways. Regardless of where you're at in your journey, I do hope there'll be some tangible takeaways. So now everyone has pretty much connected. I think we've got some people going. So really, just before we get going, I really everyone here that has connected and anyone that's helped me or been part of my journey for the last couple of years really deserves a big thank you. It's been a really crazy ride, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. But the reality is that Steve says there's no sound. Steve, are you not getting any sound? Is anyone else not getting any sound? Can we have a sound check? Let's do a sound check. Sound check, everyone. Okay, sound is working on your side. Maybe check your output, see where you're getting your audio from. Okay, Jenny says working. Steve says, I hear you well. Okay, maybe just check your output and run a test on your output audio, Steve. Okay, anyway, so first of all, just, a big thank you. Kind of firm believer in gratitude, and I really think that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for lots of people that have supported my journey in different ways at different times. And this is a really big milestone for me, as I said, and I couldn't have done it without people just supporting me as partners, as clients, as vendors, as friends, as family. And I'm really, really grateful for all of that support. So I just really wanted to say a really big thank you to everyone. So let's get started. So with the contents for today, we are going to be discussing some different aspects of organic visibility and content creation. So in this 60-minute event, this is more or less the 3 topics that we're going to touch on, and there is going to be a space for a QA. So we're going to be understanding organic visibility and its relationship with content, how to develop topics and research content ideas, and develop a solid content creation process that will streamline output and ultimately maximize the resources that you are deploying at your content creation. So hopefully by the end of this event, I really believe in having tangible takeaways. And if there's anything that I've said in the event today that you want me to either create some content on specifically, or you want to send me an email and ask me, it's totally cool. You can find my details on my website. Send me an email and I'll be answering all of any queries that come in that are technical or maybe not so technical. So this will be the 3 topics. And just before we get started, if you want to use the chat function, I'm going to turn it off during the session, and then I'm going to turn it back on again a few minutes before the session ends, and that will be so you guys can post some questions. So if you do have questions during the event, please go ahead and write them down or memorize them if you're and then at the end of the session, I'll open up the chat again, and I look forward to getting your questions. So I've just turned off the chat. The content, the framework is what we discussed. We're going to have these 3 topics, and then at the end of the event, we'll have a very like an open QA that you can ask any questions related to the content of today or anything else that you want to discuss regarding SEO or content. Okay, this is a screen with a lot of words. So I'm going to try and tell a very, very brief story in around a minute and a half. And it's just really how I found SEO. And I think this is going to be interesting for some of you guys out there who are maybe going through changes in your career or growing in your existing position or considering transitioning or discovering new things. I want to share with you my story as to how I found SEO, which today is one of my major passions. So a little bit about me. I was born in South London, UK, in a little place called Bromley, and I moved to Argentina in 2002 when I was 9. Growing up in Argentina in a really strict and religious household, I never had any access to the internet, let alone a computer, let alone the internet. I had no access at all. So as I was growing up, there was no TV, and there was definitely no computer games or access to a computer. Now, when I was 15, I was first granted access to a computer. It had no internet access. There was no LAN cable plugged in. There wasn't Wi-Fi, and it just had Word, like Microsoft Word, Paint, a notepad, and like /command. And it's funny because like a year or 2 later, when I was around 16 years old in school, and it's 2 years before I graduated, I was given access to the internet by some teachers. And it was the first time I just enjoyed this feeling of liberty of just navigating online, being able to, search resources and just validate things that I wanted to find out. And it was just like a milestone. It was just like it was like a beginning of a new era. The internet ignited something that just made my curiosity just be. I was completely obsessed with understanding more about this world. And then during like the latter school years, as I went through to graduation, and then I did some post-grad, and then I went and found a job, but I got access to the internet more and more, and my parents were like angry, like they were, you shouldn't have access to the internet, you need to limit it, it's like a really bad thing. And the more that they tried to limit it, the more my fascination grew for the digital world and the power of the internet. And to be honest, I was just interested in connecting. Like I just wanted to know what this whole world of connections was. And in early 2012, I started my first job, and I'm going to show you some pictures of that after. But during those early years, I had access to the internet, and I had access to this whole world of digital. Not to mention marketing and digital marketing and all of the aspects of digital marketing. Anyway, the rest is pretty much history. But in 2014, I stumbled across SEO completely by chance. And some people think that this happens by chance, some people think it doesn't, but I came across this thing called Schema, and Schema.org in 2013, 2014 was just starting to grow, and the algorithms and the search engines were kind of starting to be deployed at scale. And one of the things that I found was that this whole community called WordPress was just growing like crazy. It was like wildfire. So I was like, I need to be part of the community. So I joined the WordPress community, And I met someone online, to today I've never met in person, who kind of showed me some of the first steps into the world of schema and understanding the basics of SEO and obviously how to build websites. Then after that, pretty much I just started to build websites randomly. Some were terribly unsuccessful. A couple, I managed to kind of break even and have some type of success, but I started to develop like my own approach to SEO. I've been looking at black hat, white hat, the underworld and kind of things that people know about, things people don't know about. And I started to kind of positioning my way of understanding SEO comprehensively, as in bringing everything together online in different forums and blogs. And basically in 2019, I got fired from my 9 to 5. It was a really difficult time in my life, financially speaking. I lost my job, and this was 6 months before the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, I'd already chosen to follow my hobby and passion, which was SEO. So really, thanks to the power of my small network, I had a very small network, some contacts and people I reached out to. Upwork, which has been fantastic for me for networking, LinkedIn and YouTube, I really managed to gain some exposure to my work and my approach. And that really just catapulted me into the world of SEO. And since then, I was hired by ClickGuard in 2022 as a marketing manager. And then I founded my own video marketing and YouTube ads management agency earlier this year called Yugo Media. And since then, in the last, I'd say 4 years, I've managed to help, I think, nearly 100 people now with SEO and how to understand it from a completely different angle so that their businesses and organizations can truly reap the benefit of SEO. So that's really my very short story. And I hope that you might have found some things aligned with your career and your story. So this is just a very short 1-minute video. It explains a little bit about where I am and how I got to where I am, and just a very short caption of some experiences with some projects. So here goes. Okay, guys. So I just, I think that, I don't know if there's any sound came through. Someone just told me that there might not be, so apologies for that. Anyway, so I'll share the video after. It's interesting. It's kind of just a recap of some of my first engagements, first projects, first coaching calls, first SEO engagements to today. So this is some pictures, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, when I kind of, everything came crashing down for me personally, and then 2020, 2021, and 2022. So it's been a wild ride, and I just want to say thanks to everyone that has been part of this this journey so far. So let's get started with the content of today. So organic visibility and content marketing. This is why you guys are here, and I'm going to try and explain the connection between these two and why it's so important and why so few people are talking about organic visibility, which is concerning, because there is so much content on the internet about SEO, so many gurus or experts maybe, or so-called experts really talking about SEO, but what is organic visibility and why is this like the most underlying important thing that people should be focusing on? So organic visibility is the outcome of achieving exposure to content in search engines. Simply put, And content marketing, really, which is also a very common SEO terminology, is the process of creating content that feeds visibility. So I truly believe that understanding these two will help us decipher how we can position our brands and businesses in a more efficient process and really be able to connect the different comprehensive parts that will allow us to gain more exposure to our digital assets. So this is a pyramid that I often share in training, and if you guys are ever interested in any SEO coaching or SEO training or just a free discovery SEO call, do hit me up. I'm always happy to discuss and chat. So organic visibility. There are three core components to understanding organic visibility. The first component is the base of the pyramid, and it is content creation. So content creation is the first thing that is analyzed when we are discussing organic visibility. Content creation is ultimately the initial stage to understanding organic visibility, because it starts by defining the purpose of why we're creating content. Why do websites create content? Well, they create content so they can attract visitors, right? And visitors potentially turn into a revenue opportunity. But content is exposed because it is triggered by search terms. So when you make a search, you get results and you click on them. But what you're clicking on is content. Content was created. So content creation is kind of the A of the alphabet. The website is the second most important part of this pyramid, because the website is the vehicle. The website is what transitions the content to the search engines and is the landing runway for visitors. Where your visitors find you, they hit your website, they hit your domain. And the most important part of connecting these two is topical authority. Again, a term that is very little spoken about on the internet, but the goal is to establish yourself as an authority or an expert in the space or the context you operate in. This is the outcome of developing a solid website strategy with a solid content strategy, and you develop topical authority will lead to an organic visibility. So the step one in all of this is content creation. Don Draper. I hope everyone likes Don Draper, but so why do you create content? Why do people create content? Why is there so much content? I read something the other day. There is, I think there is 1.6 digital assets per person, and by 2025 there is expected to be 4 digital assets per person. Digital assets are considered a website or an application. That's a tremendous lot of content on the internet, or just accessible online. So there's this saying, which also comes from Mad Men, which there comes a point when seduction is over and force is required. So what does this mean in regards to content? Well, there are some very important aspects as to what content should be. What should content be for a business? What is the purpose? So the number one rule is content should not be forced. It should be led. And what does that mean? Well, that means that content is led by keywords. Content is led by sales conversations. Content should be led by products, industries, offerings. 2, content should not be created to fulfill malinformed KPIs or just static, benchmarks. Content is not a numbers game. Anyone that says that doesn't understand the actual purpose of developing content strategies that are as wide as they are deep. Content is quality first and quantity later. And content is about the client and the industry. And the more you know about the client, the industry, and your organization, and definitely your context, the better. And lastly, number 3, content is a conversation. It's not a monologue. What conversations do your sales teams have with your customers? What's the feedback of your content from your marketing and your sales team? What's the point of content if no one is consuming it anyway? So with this, we kind of are going to bust a few myths, and we're going to focus on how we can create content that is truly valuable. So organic visibility from a content creation aspect, the number one is it provides resources for search engines. So the internet wouldn't be the internet if there was no content, because you would make a search and you wouldn't find anything. This is like if you had a map and you wanted to go somewhere, but there was no destinations. Content is the destination of a user's search. So when you create content, it's ultimately improving the browser's search experience, the user experience. And if you think about it in very simple terms, you're actually feeding the experience for Google for their users. You're actually helping them enable and improve and maximize that experience. So it really is the most, to kind of understand this is very basic, but when we understand this, it kind of helps clarify a lot of things, is that ultimately we are just providing content so that the search engines, be it Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, Safari, Edge, whatever your search engine, is ultimately improving the user experience for its browsers and its clients. It establishes the authority for the website to showcase expertise and authority. Now, if you are a software company or a service company or industry, a heavy industry, an enterprise, a fintech, wherever you are, creating content allows you to establish yourself and exert yourself as the authority. And it also allows the website to share and refine and craft their narrative, influencing, attracting, converting, and retaining. Guys, content works at different stages of the funnel. It's not always linear. That's really going to depend on your industry. It's going to depend on the business that you're operating in. But either way, content isn't linear, and depending on the stages of the funnel of your clients and of your users, it's going to have an effect at the influencing stage, at the attracting stage, at the converting, and at the retaining. Now, websites and more websites. So if in 2025 there's going to be 4 digital properties per person, we're looking at 26.4 billion websites or applications or hosted content services, if we want to define it. So can you imagine how many websites there will be and how many websites there are? It's incredible, it's infinite. Actually, I tried to find statistics on this the whole time and there's nothing definitive. There's just very, very idealistic metrics, but the reality is there are so many websites. Why me? So why are we focusing on the website as a vehicle? The reason being is website content precedes design. Design in the absence of content is just decoration. Now, what does this mean? Well, 55% of all transactions today started with an online search. So there's a clear transition. Everyone knows that. Anyone that's joined this call knows that there is a clear transition. But why am I making a point about websites? Well, I do this exercise in a lot of coaching sessions called Ground Zero. And to be honest, it's not an exercise that I enjoy because it often involves very, very difficult conversations. And Ground Zero is a coaching session where we discuss the website's usability and the actual ROI from the website as a vehicle. So far too often I see businesses trying to create these perfect websites. And for the past 4 years, I have gone through many businesses and seen them moving just from one website build to another website build, and without actually paying attention to what truly matters the most. Now, your users do care about the design. I don't know how much Google cares about the design or other search engines, but the goal of a website as a vehicle is to be initially on best terms with Google and other search engines. What does best terms mean? Well, that means that you are complying with basic requirements that search engines are asking so that you can provide a great experience for their clients. And being on best terms is way more powerful than any other flashy design or animation. This is a little bit like going from A to B. Straightest line, the quickest way is the straightest line. Google is concerned about that straight line. And we're going to look at what Google is measuring and why this is so important about when it comes to content creation. Website priorities are focused on user experience. Now, this is something in SEO that we do a lot of work on, and there's a lot of coaching that goes on regarding user experience and looking and testing and finding opportunities for improvement. But ultimately, there are 3 things that Google rolls out and updates every year, algorithm updates and other search engines. And one of the latest search updates that Google rolled out is called EAT, which stands for expertise, authority, and trust. And we define this in SEO as being secure, being optimized, and being fast. So very simple. Secure being that your website is completely uncompromised and it can't compromise its users. There's no way your content on your website doesn't have the basic security protocols in place that are not going to ever compromise one of Google's clients, which are the browsers. Optimized is that you are providing an authority, you're providing content that's an authority and it's a positive experience. And it's optimized for the different devices that are finding your content. And lastly is fast. And this kind of goes the same for the different devices. It loads fast, simple. The purpose of a website is the moment you click the content, the results is that it loads. You shouldn't be waiting for content. You shouldn't be waiting for content to load. That's a misconception. Before design, speed is way more important. Now, step 3 is topical authority. And this is like probably the most privileged part of organic visibility. And personally, what excites me the most about topical authority is that no one is talking about it. Everyone's talking about creating content. Everyone's talking about domain authority, but no one's talking about topical authority. Now, everyone thinks that, I'm an authority in my space. Okay, yes, you are an authority in your space. You have the best online education in your industry. You have the best software for the problem that you're solving. Your solution is hands down the best. You have the best air conditioning servicing company in the area, of course. But how do we now translate that to the website? How do we now translate that to the content? Now, there's this saying by William Shakespeare, which is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Now, what does this mean? Well, very simply, when you create content for a website, for your websites, for your businesses, you need to think about your niche. You need to think about where you want to become an authority in. And topical authority, the ultimate goal of a website is, if well informed, over time, to dominate the organic visibility of a topic or a conversation. Now, the 3 rules of topical authority is ultimately you are trying to narrow down how many conversations you are involved in on the internet and how much impact you can have in the ones that you truly care about. So the first recommendation and suggestion that I have for businesses is to niche down on topics. Choose a niche and focus on delivering quality to one niche. Start with one niche. You want to layer on and build this up over time. I call this an onion method, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few slides. Short form versus long form content. Now, so many times I get people saying, long form content only works, SEO is all about long form content. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. This is going to depend highly on your landscape. You can test short form, you can test long form, but you need to look at your landscape, but not one is always going to be right. And the last is multiple formats of content on your website. This really means you've got one website, test multiple formats of content, test videos, test images, test infographics. I've got people that are testing web stories, which are like a version of stories that you see on Instagram or on Facebook on WordPress. You can actually now do web stories where people can actually find your content suggested. On the Android users can find suggested infographics and see your content. So test more than one format, use more than one format, repurpose your content that is going to allow you to get more exposure and find where your gap in your industry and your context is. Now, all of this comes down to the underlying factor, which here is at the bottom of this graph, which is content maturity and domain authority scoring. So some of you guys might not know about domain authority or authority score, and I'm happy to answer those questions after, but content maturity is how long it takes for content to rank. So content gets exposed, people find it and they click on it, and that is what we call content maturity. Again, another terminology that no one is really talking about. And content maturity is really going to depend on multiple factors, but in time, if you establish the right foundational principles, you will see your content start to mature, increase in positioning, and that will increase with your domain authority and your authority score. There will be a parallel. Now, the content maturity process really is like a plant. So plant the seed, germinates, the roots go down, a little shoot comes out, the shoot develops and goes on to become a flower becomes a small plant becomes a big hedge or a bush. Now, ultimately, it's the same thing. Publishing content is like day one. So this is like your day one, you're publishing content. As you can see, it's the first stage. Then you've got like maybe day 60. Google has now indexed your website, considering you've got your Google Search Console and analytics set up and everything integrated. Google index your website, and then the content receives initial impressions. It's where things start to happen. We'll look at use cases of case studies of what this looks like right now. Then you start to build ethical internal and external links. You start to create some signals so that Google recognizes that something is happening. There's something going on that website, some content that we're interested in showing to our users, the browsers. And then maybe a year into this process, you're updating the content because maybe you mentioned something that was time sensitive and you want to change it, or you go back and you want to improve the content because you've got a better perspective or more research. Content isn't static. It's not set and forget. In time, every year I go, like I continue this journey, I see people going back and optimizing and improving content. It's not like a wardrobe where you can just like throw old files in and expect it to work. Some content will, maybe, yes, but there'll be a time when that will start to decrease and it will start to actually completely drop. And I always recommend, if you're going to create content, have some process of someone or somebody going behind and checking that content is still mature, or is maturing and is continuing always to be optimized for the intent of what you have created that piece of content for. Now, this is an example of an article that had a lot of impressions and a lot of traffic. And as you can see, this is 16 months. This is like a year and 4 months, so a year and 1 quarter, so 5 quarters. And as you can see, it went from like, the blue line is the clicks. So you've gone from like, I don't know, 20, 30 clicks up to, I don't know, 280, I think maybe 300 clicks. But it took, 16 months for that to go from 20, 30 clicks to 300 clicks. Now that's 10x in traffic. That's 10x in traffic, but it didn't happen in 6 months. It took a year and a half nearly for that to completely curve and be at its full maturity phase. And it might not actually go further than that. It's really going to depend on the volume and the search term and how optimized the content is. Now you've got another example of another website that has a very interesting case, and I really, really like this case because it means that it's an interesting project, but starting very, very small, very, very insignificant traffic, days of like 0, and bumping all the way up to highs of like 220 or 300. These people had like 4 or 5 clicks a day, and they're now receiving 200 clicks a day. But it was 16 months of work. And there was a maturity that kicked in that was outside of maybe the SEO work that the business was doing and working on its content and improving its approach. But what is important is that over time, you realize that the content maturity process has some element of unknown, but the elements we can control are understanding the landscape we operate in, understanding what the process and landscape looks like. So who are we competing up? Who's our content actually competing with? And most importantly, be prepared for this. Be prepared for some ups and downs for a few months or maybe even 2 quarters. And I've seen this. This is another case. This is a website, a very, very new website. This is 3 months of traffic. Received 60 clicks. Does it mean the website's failed? Hell no. Of course it doesn't. It just means that the website is completely new. There is no authority. They're starting to gain visibility. And this is a process that takes time. But it's, as you can understand content maturity, it helps you when you approach these projects. It helps when you approach your content creation, what to expect and how you can help accelerate this maturity process as fast as possible. Now, the onion method, creating content, which is, I would say, if there was any secret sauce, is the following, and it's all about creating niches. So it's really about starting very, very hyper small and hyper specific and growing out. Now, the first point is you choose your niche topic and subject. This is the center of the onion. The second layer of the onion, you are creating long tail variations of this content. You're now expanding a little bit more into the next phase. You're then looking at subject statistics. You're then looking at subject comparisons. You're then looking at supporting evidence and maybe more subject matter expert research. And finally, you're going to look at overlapping topics and overlapping subjects and potentially broad variations. But this isn't like you write a blog article and just expect it to rank. If you've never developed core authority in that subject, you cannot expect it to rank. So these are 4 frequently asked questions related to organic visibility that I probably answer nearly every week. So it's going to be very straightforward for me to answer them. So the number 1 is, how much content do you need to get visible? How much content do you need to create or develop to get visible? Well, the short answer is you will need as much content to get visible as the competitive or the landscape that you are now asserting yourself to. If you're inserting your domain, your website into a landscape and it's brand new, you need to analyze your competitive landscape and look at what they are doing. It doesn't mean you're going to copy their content strategy, no, but you will get an insight as to the volume, as to the quantity of content they are creating. That's going to then let you know, okay, how much content will I need if I want to compete with them? But there is a very, very strong caveat to this. If you can identify content gaps, as in keywords they're not optimized for, then your need for creating a lot of content isn't there. It's more about creating hyper-specific or hyper-niche content that can fill those gaps. So how much content you're going to create? Well, I've seen industries that create 5 blogs a month and have taken their website to 100,000 visits a year. I've seen people create 20 blogs a month and only achieve 50,000 searches a year. So it's going to depend on your landscape. That's the first dimension. And the second dimension is, what is the quantity of searches and impressions available to serve that inventory of searches to your content. Number 2 is, how do you build external links without buying them? Well, very simply, there are over 50 websites that you can publish your content on or repurpose it. I can name a few: Twitter, LinkedIn, Reddit, Quora. There's tons. There's absolutely tons. If you research it, there's tons. That's the first way you need to go and develop your external linking strategy. Now, I do have a strategy which I work on a lot with people, which is reaching out and building partnerships, building alliances. This is a kind of a coaching product, but the most important part is that if you want to build external links back to your domain, you need to consider first, well, what content do you want to build your links to? Where are your apps? Is it to your homepage or is it to your articles? But the first way is go and use the free tools out there. You don't need to buy them. Number 3, why are internal links between content so valuable? Internal links is when you mention another piece of content on the same domain. These are extremely, extremely important. Probably more important than external links. If you haven't got internal links, forget external links. When content is ranked and content gets indexed by Google, either manually or on autopilot, if there is one article that is doing very, very well and getting a lot of impressions, it's most likely that if you link it to another article, it will create a signal in the search engines, which will push the bot to navigate and index that page, although it may have been routinely indexed. Now, often I see people publishing 100 blogs and one blog doing extremely well. And then I see someone posting 10 blogs or done 10 blogs and all 10 doing very well. But 9 times out of 10, it's generally like an 80-20 rule. 100% of the traffic, 20%, 100% of the blogs, 20% are bringing the majority of the traffic. So I would consider internally linking always, so that when it's indexed, when Google crawls down the content, they find the link, they go to the page that you've created, another article or white sheet or service page or whatever the page is, and it will be indexed. And that's a great way of it's called forced indexing, and it's super recommended to create this internal ecosystem of your content. Now, lastly, how long should my content be to be considered authority? Well, some pieces of content are going to need to be 1,000 words. Some pieces of content can get away with 200. I can give you an example. So a recipe on a website can get away with 200 words. Informative thought leadership piece on Forbes maybe is 2,500 words. What's the difference? Well, it's going to depend on the keyword that you want to rank for. So the first analysis I would do is, what type of content are you going to create? Who's your buyer profile? Who are you trying to influence? Who are you trying to reach? That's going to identify how long or how deep or how broad your content needs to be. And I always say that content length isn't going to fix the value problem. If you're not communicating value, it doesn't matter how long it is, it's still not going to rank. So the most important thing is to communicate the value that you have in your content, and that's going to allow you to become authoritative over time. As Google finds your content, people find your content, and it becomes, you might say, that maturity process starts to kick in. So finding topics and developing content ideas. This is stage 2 of the webinar, guys. There is one more stage after this, and then we're going to have the Q&A. So if you guys had questions or want me to go like a little bit deeper into a subject, just remember your question, write it down, and then post it in the chat. So finding topics and developing content ideas is kind of the second part of the organic visibility webinar. And really, it happens so often in businesses that like, what type of content should we create? So there's two patterns, and I call them data versus hunch. Now, a lot of businesses can consider like just the keyword research sufficient to fuel their content ideas and kind of fuel their content creation. And then you've got other businesses that will just looking at hunch. So hunch is just like, I think this is a great content idea, or I think this is, I've heard someone saying this and I, joined it together something else I read online, and I come up with a content strategy based on my gut feeling or my hunch. Now let's just take a look at the data-driven way. So identify areas that you consider an opportunity, you define the terminology and key phrases, you then go on to do lots of keyword research and endless spreadsheets. You then convert the keyword research into understandable and actionable content ideas. You then define which ones work best for the business and where we're at, and then you start creating content. Okay, now the hunch method is when you identify areas that you consider opportunity. You then brainstorm what we think people are searching for, so you're kind of creating some hypothesis or conclusion. You do lots of discussions in the teams, or maybe through Slack or email, as to what people actually are searching for in Google. And then you make a small list of keywords that you've gathered and kind of define which ones work best, and then you start creating content. Now, which one is going to be the best way? The reality is both. Data is often right and hunch can be right too. This is where SEO and organic visibility is very interesting, because approaching finding new topics and creating content is really where the magic happens, because you're uniting so many different moving parts to the content creation process, and you're really bringing together the different areas in your company or your business that you're working in that will bring out the best content that will serve you for a long time and will reap great returns. So I call this system client team data. Client is, if your goal is to reach new clients, right, and expose yourself to potential readers that turn into revenue opportunity or that you can monetize, the best way to start researching topics is by reading between the lines of the conversations between your clients and your audience and your business. So your client-facing team is most likely the most engaged area in this stage. The second stage of this methodology is let your team start to share ideas and topics that they've found. Compile a wiki, put together a Google Docs, start sharing links, share internally assets and content you've found that you find interesting. Start to build a mood board, start to build something visual that can tell a story, but get buy-in from your team. Your marketing team, your sales team, your operations team, your customer service team, get buy-in. And this is going to help you connect later on and get buy-in from leadership. And last is data. Do keyword research. Keyword research and statistics will help you qualify that your keyword findings and what you think is right is actually accurate. Now, building an SEO culture is really very much linked to your buy-in from your team and the moving parts within your content creation process. So internally and externally, you've got your team and your leadership. So connecting them and making sure they're on board with whatever you're doing and understanding the impact that this is having on your content output. And then using and leveraging your clients and audiences. You're going to say, how the hell do I do that? Well, simply test doing a survey, do a poll, run a research session, do a focus group with some clients, or pay somebody $100 to sit down with you for an hour and just ask them a bunch of questions about the industry and what they think. You will learn more from that than going and paying a content or copywriter, thousands and thousands of dollars to create content that doesn't actually understand the industry. So sit down with your clients and audience and invest in getting feedback. Feedback fuels topics, and topics fuel keywords. Keywords fuel content creation. Team and leadership is really getting the buy-in, and this is going to help your culture internally to understand the impact that SEO is going to have on the output and obviously your progress with your organic visibility. Now, this is actually, again, a coaching session, but I've pulled some data from this. But basically, I often help people set up like an application stack for topic and keyword research. So I'm going to run through my favorite tools and how I use them and why. Number one is Sifton. Now, Sifton is a very, very sneaky API. And what it does is it plugs into the majority of the community or community-led product, like spaces, and it will pull from that like conversations that you're interested in. So you would insert what you're interested in, and it would extract and notify you conversations that are happening. This plugs into Upwork, Facebook, Lever, it plugs into Slack, it plugs into Circle, it plugs into Twitter, Reddit, lots of different spaces. This helps monitor conversations that you want to be engaged with or you want to find and do research on. Now, this is a paid tool. The first few tools are going to be paid. The second is Answer the Republic. You might have heard this as well. Answer the Public is a really interesting application. It's very, very different to anything else that I've seen because it shows the data in a really different way. To be honest, I don't really like it in regards to the data perspective. It shows it in a nice way. I've seen the data to be a little bit off or skewed many times, but it does give you a lot of resources that can then kind of allow you to start making the right moves in the right direction of where you want to place your content strategy. And the third, which is my favorite tool, is SEMrush. I use SEMrush every single day. I'm not affiliated. And I actually teach people how to use this and how to get the best ROI in using this tool. It has a bunch of features which are absolutely awful, and it has a bunch of features which are really, really, really nice. I really like this for keyword and topic research. Now, the free tools are communities. So I would go to communities and start using things like Reddit, Google Alerts, which is great for sending you weekly notifications about topics that you want to develop yourself. You want to research, then feed your development of your content strategy. Quora, and there are a few others. So what would you want to look out for with your online research? Well, the first thing is if you can find questions that people are answering with little to no response in the communities, that's an opportunity. Because there isn't, if there's obviously no responses, then either there is no value or no one's actually got sufficient time to create or has never created content or positioned some content for that. Now, it can go both ways. That's why you need to research and validate it. But when I see threads and upvoted discussions that are not being responded, that is an interesting signal. Look at the resources and find the links in the threads and go back to them and see when that content was created and if there is a gap. Look at conversations that are being debated and look at what the questions are and what people are saying. This is going to give you a really good insight as to what the conversational narrative is in certain topics. Mentions in groups or in websites of keywords or topics that are aligned with your research. Look at the gaps. So look at responses people are not getting. Look at those wider gaps or maybe shorter, smaller gaps. And the fourth is ranking content that is outdated or with misinformation. This is awesome. So if you do a search of a keyword that you're concerned about or topic, and you can install a Chrome, tool, which is free. It's called Surfer, Keyword Surfer, and it will tell you when the website was last edited or last changed. Now, why this is interesting is if a content on a website is outdated or there's misinformation, boom, that's an opportunity. You can then go and improve that and outrank it way quicker in your maturity cycle. Why? Because you're providing more value, and Google wants to promote that. As we discussed at the beginning, it's the purpose of the user experience from the search engines. And lastly is FAQs from Google. Google suggests search. When you do a search, you'll see at the bottom, you can also search this, and there's options. Look at them. Find that go back to those blogs that are ranking and figure out what their content is being shown is, and what the content is being shown and why. Why is Google actually featuring those FAQs? Now, when it comes to paid research, metrics you need to look out for are very, very different. This is, again, if you do have experience and you've experimented with SEMrush or Moz or any of those keyword research tools, you'll probably be aware of these metrics, but there are a few metrics that will determine the maturity rate that your content will have. The first one is competitive landscape. This is how often new content or existing content on this keyword is being added or modified. The second is keyword difficulty. So how much content is optimized for this keyword? How much content is there out there that's being optimized for this keyword? And what is the maturity cycle? And the last is volume. Not always a metric that's used appropriately, because often see people searching for keywords that have tremendous volume, and it's not always so. But a keyword with no trackable volume might not also align with your goals. It's really going to depend on the intent of the keyword, but you want to study the volume. Now, You should have some ideas now about the content, the organic visibility, understanding websites, understanding how we can do research and create topics. Now let's look at developing content processes that fly. Now, if you're in content creation, you might know something like this, or you might have sometimes felt like this. So when you're creating content, there are so many moving parts, and more often, you get the CEO giving you feedback. You've got keyword research in a Google Doc somewhere in Excel. You've got subject matter experts giving you feedback. You've got defined topics. You've then got your social media team that wants to repurpose content. You've got draft Google Drive folder hanging around somewhere. You've got sales team, web designer, contractors, even your ideas, and the copywriter. Content creation, it can be a bloody mess. So I'm going to try and show you how we can create a very visual process that can help organize this. So the first thing that you must do before getting into this whole chaos is be crystal clear with the topics you're going to start with. Now, you can choose topics by going around your products, your services, client-facing conversations, your industry agnostics, problems that you solve, etc. But you must start with topics. Get absolute transparent insights or clarity. Get just absolute, define your topics before anything. Don't move until you have your topics completely defined. This doesn't mean they're going to be set in stone, but it's going to give you a starting point. If you add too many variations to your starting point, you're just going to go round and round and round in circles. Topics are going to then inform your content clusters. Now, streamlining the content process starts with identifying your topics and now starting to group them. Group them by level of intent. So intent is really what is the search? What is the type of search? What is the type of conversations? The level of proximity to your internal expertise. If you've got no internal expertise, then the topic isn't for you. You need to analyze the level of internal expertise you have so that you can identify if that topic is a good fit. And the last is the different stages in your buyer journey. Now, this isn't going to be applicable for everyone, but if you've got an established buyer journey, identifying the topics in relation to where you want to influence your potential lead or audience is going to be hyper important. And I think that the most valuable part here is if you're using a standard funnel where you've got assets that create opt-ins and then bring people down and nurturing them and then converting them, your content you're going to place at the different stages, group your content or your topics based on that. So you've now had some random topics, you've started to group them visually depending on these different criteria that can be intent, can be proximity to your internal expertise, and the stages in your buyer journey. Now you've got something visual to start working with. Clusters will then be refined before our keyword research. So basically, what we're going to do now is we're going to create content clusters. Now you've got topics and you've created these groups, which are basically clusters. And we're going to now try and identify within these content clusters some initial topics, or I should say search terms or broad search terms that could be related to your core service, product, and awareness funnel. Now, I often get asked, hey, how many content clusters do I need? Well, it's really, again, it's going to be really dependent on your industry and you might say the stage that you're at in your business. But ideally, you would be looking at 4 to 5 content clusters if you're starting out. Maybe if you've got more experience and you've been doing content for some time, you might need to actually look at what you've got on your website and start to bulk things together in content clusters to kind of create a picture of your content strategy. And within those content clusters, you could have 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 big search terms that you can then we can then work on and develop into keywords. Now that you've got your content clusters, you've had crazy ideas and topics, you've bounced them off your team, you've refined them into groups, you've created these content clusters, and you now have some idea of what search terms could look like. This is when you start your keyword research. This is going to save you so much time and triaging through data and spreadsheets and metrics, which keyword research is good, but it's only good when it's aligned with all of what we've mentioned before. So streamlining the content process, the last stage is your keyword research. So you now need to confirm your findings with the keyword research, start to narrow down your choice by analyzing the keyword metrics that are going to validate the viability and opportunity. If you've got a keyword that has no traffic, no volume, or it's very difficult, this is going to change your approach and your strategy for obviously developing and establishing what keywords you want to go after. This can look something like this. If you're in SEMrush, you can be looking at your keyword volume, which is your monthly keyword volume. You're looking at your keyword difficulty. You're looking at your competitive landscape. You could be looking at questions. You could be looking at keyword variations. You've got this whole spread of data. So this is going to make your keyword research so much more easier and refined and streamlined if you follow this process of getting your topics out, grouping them, refining them, and then doing your keyword research. Now, this is a visual line of what your content research could look like. So you're going to start with your research online. You're going to go online, you're going to do your due diligence and define those topics. You're then going to move them into the content clusters. Those content clusters where you're going to get your buy-in from the team, from maybe stakeholders or leadership, and then you're going to move that to grouping clusters. This is where you want to get your subject matter experts involved, because it's going to help you get input and kind of bounce things off and figure out what's actually doable and what isn't. Now that you've validated that, you're going to move to keyword research. And researching keywords is really the last stage of the funnel, and this is going to allow you and set you up to validate what content you want to create. The framework to create content that will get indexed and visible is going to be the following. When you've now defined your keywords, you're now ready to create your content. Now, I see so many websites, guys, that are just terribly bad formatting, and they're just not indexable. Like I've seen everything from recipe websites that have done extremely well to blogging websites that have done extremely well to big enterprise websites that are not doing well at all. And it really comes down to some very, very simple things. When you're uploading and creating content, there is a few things that you must get right when you're creating content and uploading it. So if you're ready to create some content, I want to let you know that creating content is good and it's going to get you visibility. Definitely going to be your major contribution to your organic visibility. And it does work. There is future. Even if you're a new business, you definitely can create content that gets exposed. But there are some things we must get right when we're starting out. The first thing is there are too many myths around content creation and the content process that I need to bust before you go any further. So number one, content doesn't need to be 2,500 words to rank. It doesn't. Two, you don't need to inject keywords at every given white space. That is a completely misled principle. From very early on in Google days, I don't know why that was considered like the mainstream. You don't need to inject it. There are some like best practices, but you don't need to inject them, every 3 words. You don't need to spend months creating perfect copy. Done is better than perfect. You can make it, you can perfect it over time, but keep moving forward because you will refine the process of creating content as you continue the transition. And you don't need to create an article for every keyword. One article can rank for multiple keywords. So the must-have structure for content creators is, number one, identify the schema. Now, schema is ultimately an algorithm or a code set that was created by some developers that were working with the WordPress community that I shared at the beginning of the conversation, that really help format content in a way that is legible for search engines to index and understand what the content is about without sending people to actually read it and position it manually. So you need to identify what your schema is. Is it articles? Is it posts? Is it how-tos? Is it recipes? Is it video? What is your schema? What are the schema you're going to use? So if you have a WordPress developer or you have a website developer or you have a content creation team, sit down with them and figure out what the schema is for your business. Most businesses use articles or posts, but it's going to highly depend on the industry and the business you're in. Properly format your content, so your H1s, H2s, H3s, and obviously your text. Break up your content into multiple infographics. Break up your content, make it easier to read. Shorter content, sweeter content often is easier for people to read as people are accustomed to skim reading and going fast. And I think from my experience over the past couple of years that I see that broken up paragraphs work a lot better than huge chunks of text. Create short but query-friendly URLs. So the URL is basically what comes up on your website. So jasonpittock.com/how to create content. The URL is what comes after. make that shorter than longer. Make sure that it's keyword friendly. And too long is, I think there is like a maximum, I think it's like 60 characters, but however, you generally can get these best practices when you're uploading the content with if you have some SEO plugins or you're using a builder, but try and keep them shorter. URLs generally perform better when they're shorter. Include FAQs. FAQs are basically frequently asked questions about a topic. This is a great opportunity for getting your H2s and H3s optimized. Now, this is 3 slides, very basic SEO tags. This is way deeper, but I'm going to try and be very, very brief here as we're drawing to an end, and I'm looking forward to getting some of your questions in. So the most undervalued of tags is the title tag. The title tag is what appears in a search result. So if I searched SEO coaching and came across my website, it'd be Jason Pittock, SEO coaching and SEO training for SMBs. This is the title tag. You need to define this, and this is going to be the most important place that you want to repeat the keyword that your content is about. How relevant is the content on the page is what is the search term or the keyword that you want to put in that title tag. The title tag also can include your brand name. If you want to create brand awareness and branding, you can include that there. I would always recommend using a dash or a line or 2 dots. There's different ways of doing that, but it's very, very important that your title tags are kept fresh and, most importantly, are enticing for people to come into your site and read your content. Meta tags at one point were not important for SEO, but in recent years it's come to light that they have a direct impact on your SEO rankings. They're really, really important for good click-through rates. Click-through rates are when your content is viewed but no one clicks on it, you get a low click-through rate. When your content is viewed and people click through it, it means people go to your website and actually read the content. This metric is informed to the search engines. So if you have a higher click-through rate, it signals to Google and search engines that the content that is being showed and exposed is relevant, and that's good. And that allows you to create relevancy and topical authority. So increasing the quality of your meta descriptions, which means basically make them good copy, make them exciting, make them enticing, use a keyword, increase the likelihood of people clicking through. If people are finding your content, they better as well click through. And the last is content tags, which is ultimately the tag that is going to break up your content. So your H1s, H2s, H3s. And this is a great place to use keywords, guys. Like if you use keywords here, you've got a high likelihood of getting your featured content, featured snippets in the search results. Now, to round off, when it comes to creating content, you really need to focus on we talked about a lot of things today, but simply put, create content that truly communicates. There is so much content on the internet that is misjointed, it doesn't truly communicate. Somebody is making a search, they want a definitive answer. So focus on creating content that really communicates a simple response to an answer. And not just optimized for search engines. I mean, search engines are tremendously important and kind of the underlying basis for this whole, everything we've spoken about today, organic visibility. But after you've done your basic optimization, you know your site is secure and fast and optimized, focus on creating content that is truly communicative, and it will create and establish a bond between the user and your brand. And that is when there is tremendous opportunity in creating organic visibility and leveraging content for your business. So I think we are pretty much up. We're 3 minutes over time, so I'm going to go ahead and enable the chat, and I am going to see if there is any questions and we can answer them. So if you guys are interested in any SEO work, or you're interested in any SEO coaching or training, you can reach out to me at jasonpittock.com/contact, and you can definitely book a discovery call and ask me any questions. I'm happy to sit down for 60 minutes and go through where you're at in the SEO journey. Currently, I have different SEO coaching packages available, and I am offering a $500 off for anyone that books an SEO coaching package for January. So if you're interested in an SEO coaching package, go ahead and just send me a message after the webinar, and I'll be happy to send you the coupon and we can discuss further. So if there are any questions, I am going to check. Okay, one question. Any SEO tips on local versus national type of business? This is a really good question, guys. So local businesses with SEO strategies have tremendous advantage. If you can own your local SEO, it's going to be way it's going to be, your maturity process is going to be so much faster. The reason being is Google really likes local businesses to be optimized for search. So basically, Google Maps, I'd start with Google Maps and Google My Business. They're the two places I would optimize very strongly for. This, in regards to national, is really going to depend on where your clients are. But if you're considering like helping a small business, or you have a small business and you want to expose your services or products locally, then I would start by optimizing your Google My Business. Now, regarding national, it's going to take time because you're going to have more URLs to compete with. You have more domains, basically. And when you're targeting locally, you've obviously got a lot less content to compete with, so your maturity process is going to be a lot faster. But of course, your traffic is going to be less. Another question is, AI writing tools like Jasper seem to be really blowing up this year, reaching a certain maturity. My question is, do you think these have their place in SEO content creation? Any warnings, gotchas? Absolutely great question. I didn't mention Jasper today. I didn't mention CopyShark. These are incredibly well-marketed tools. To be honest, I absolutely don't believe in them. I don't believe you can ever replace the genuine creation of somebody who has thought up a topic and developed a perspective. And I've found, and I have this validated from some research and some data that I'm looking at currently, is that websites that have created thousands of blogs created by AI, it's not AI, I mean, it's just basically machine learning, which is leveraging data at scale, but we'll call it AI. Blogs that have been created by AI have had higher risks of penalty because the content is extracted from indexed content that's currently on the internet. So you run two possible scenarios. One is Google realizing that the content is copied, pasted, and kind of mixed up and shoved and then pasted, which could be like you could be penalized for cannibalizing someone else's content. And the second is it's also not genuine. And how long can you sustain that in time? I don't mean that creating content with an assistant or these digital products, these digital tools, isn't like a good way of like accelerating your content process, but I've always seen genuine content rank way better and faster and more sustainable in time than AI-driven tools, or these assistants. I think they're okay, but in their box, like in their place. To write blog content for a business, hell no. I don't think you can genuinely communicate the tone and voice. I mean, I looked at the filters in these, they're like, I don't know, emotional voice or scary voice, or I don't know, like how much can you truly communicate your brand? And when you've got a brand that you've worked so hard for to develop, there's nothing better than truly expressing that. Somebody asked, how expensive is it to position my website with SEO? Well, it's going to depend on your industry, and it's obviously going to depend on what you're positioning. To give you an idea, to build a website can cost anywhere between $500,000 and $50,000, really depending on, or even $1 million, I guess, depending on what you're building. But most websites can be built for $1,000 or maybe $3,000 or $5,000. Creating content is going to depend on who's creating the content to get positioned. So you can get content creation teams put together for a good budget, and then really optimizing your content is going to come down to how much resources and time you have to invest into that. I would recommend scheduling a discussion call with me, and we can definitely go a little bit deeper into it. But coaching packages and SEO creation resources you're going to need to create your content is going to help you position your website, and building a website is really going to depend on what amount of content you want to put out. When you're building websites, there are lots of flashy website builders, and I think I talked about it before, but like the most important thing is that the website works, it's fast, and it communicates, and that's probably most important part when you're creating a website to consider. So regarding costs, it's really gonna start off very much, a small budget, and it's gonna slide up according to what you want to do with your content and who you're positioning your content against, and where you want to obviously establish yourself and the audience you want to reach. Are there any other questions, guys? So there's one more question actually. There's one more question coming in. Let's see. I definitely want to learn some more. Okay, cool. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is just go onto YouTube, type Jason Pittock, and you can grab my all my free training there. I got a question yesterday that I want to share with you guys, which I thought was super interesting. I think it's probably might answer a few questions that you're having. Is, how long does it take to start an SEO strategy, deploy it, and successfully, see it grow? Well, when you start to embrace the concept of organic visibility, this is an approach, but it's also a way of thinking. And I truly believe that there is never a point where you arrive. There is never a destination. There's a journey, and that journey is going to be understanding the moving parts, understanding how you can bring everything together, and then you begin this journey of doing what we've discussed today as to your website, your content creation, establishing your niches, your topics, and this is all going to contribute to your journey for organic visibility. And one of the most important things is it's about starting your journey. It's about understanding what is standing between you doing it, between not starting and where you are today, and actually getting things moving. I would always recommend, start looking at your blog content, start optimizing your blog content, making sure that it's actually keyword friendly, looking at your homepage, exposing opportunities for keywords or service, if you've got like a service business, service keywords. But either way, SEO can reap great benefits in 6 months. It can reap even better benefits in a year. And it can reap incredible breakthrough progress in 2 years. And as you grow into this industry, into this strategy of developing organic visibility, the opportunity is going to be proportionate to the commitment and how much you want to make this part of your marketing strategy. So I think that is everything. Is there any other questions, guys? I am going to close up in a few minutes. So different people, any more questions? And let's see. Oh, what type of content ranks best? Well, great question, but content, when you're creating content that you want to get exposed in search results, first thing is to take a look at obviously, what's easiest for your team and your current process to embrace and start creating. So I would start with maybe articles or posts or PDFs or white sheets. As I explained in one of the presentations, that you can choose different types. You can get indexed for videos. If you go onto Google now and search how to change a car tire, how to change the tire of your car, the first thing will come up is a video, and the video will have chapters. That is a website that has a video hosted on it and is indexed with a schema for video. So it's a matter of what content is best for you instead of what content is best for SEO. If you're comfortable with creating video, then create video. If you're comfortable with creating written content, create written content. Most important thing is to choose one and then obviously run with it and keep testing, graphics, maybe test video, and find out what you're most comfortable with, and also what works best for your audience. I think creating articles is obviously going to be the most linear way, but whichever way you want to consider, just start and then start testing different areas, figure out what works best for your business and audience. And again, remember to stay niche down and specific on the topics that you want to create. You want to establish yourself as an authority. Okay, guys, we're 1 hour and 15 into the event. I just want to say thank you, and I think that is everything for today. If you're interested in anything more, just go to jasonpittock.com, and you can always send me an email or a message. I'm happy to discuss. I'll jump on a call. So thank you, guys, and have a great afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. So Thank you. I'm going to close the event, so have a good afternoon or a good evening.